On this day, the 10th of January, 49 BC, Julius Caesar crosses the Rubicon. This event, although seeming small, crossing a river, was the equivalent of declaring war on the Senate and the people of Rome. He had already been declared an enemy of the Senate and people of Rome, and had been ordered to come to Rome and surrender himself to the Senate. He refused and decided, after much thinking and pondering, to march on Rome with his army. This event would turn out to be one of the most influential and important events in world history. And let's see why. Julius Caesar had an amazing, interesting life. From being seized by pirates and promising to come back and hang them all, which he did. He was also a big fan of Sulla, the first great break in the Roman Republic. Sulla had become a dictator, and in many ways Sulla he wanted Rome to be the great republic that it could have been or should have been. He laid down his dictatorship and went and retired, and was hoping that no one else would ever be able to become as powerful as he. Well, Caesar saw Sulla. He saw what he did. And in many ways, Caesar did something very similar to Sulla years before. Caesar would become a consul in 59 BC. The great and incorruptible Cato opposed him, and for the very first time that's recorded, paid bribes so that Caesar's opponent would win rather than he. He was elected with a conservative, Marcus Bibulus. Marcus Bibulus wasn't the most effective consul. After a few attempts at stopping Caesar and his land reform, some of Caesar's supporters attacked him, broke his fasces, and poured shit on him, forcing him to flee. He ended up staying in his house for the rest of the year, issuing complaints and prophecies of doom, but never actually voting against Caesar or vetoing what he could do, because at that point there were 2 consuls per year, and each consul could veto the other's proposals or laws. All they had to do was say veto. But because he was staying at home, nothing was vetoed. So, during his time becoming a consul, and he wanted to become a consul again, that was kind of why he went off to become a governor. But whilst he was a consul, his main policy was redistribution of land to the poor. This had been something that Sulla had tried, and something that various other consuls had tried throughout their time in office. Never really worked out, but it was a big issue for the day. And Caesar was a reformer. Pompey and Crassus, the other 2 parts of the first triumvirate, supported Caesar in this. Crassus being the richest man in Rome, and apparently one of the richest men in all of history, and Pompey being the great general who had conquered much of Anatolia and Syria. So between them, they had a great general. They had Caesar, who had the potential to be a great general at that time, and Crassus, the wealthiest man in the world. Pompey had married Julia, Caesar's daughter, and so the three of them were now tied and united in a way to control Rome behind the scenes. Now, one of the great things about being a consul is that after your year is done, you get a governorship, which means you can go to a province, you can siphon off a lot of the local taxes, and you can make yourself very rich. And if you go to war with some tribe next door, you can loot them and take all their wealth as well. So, in this way, many consuls had become immensely wealthy after leaving office. Now, the Senate didn't like Caesar, so they didn't want to give him a governorship. They wanted to give him some meaningless title, Lord of the, or Protector of the Woods in Italy. Eventually, with Pompey's help, and Crassus, and their supporters, he got 2 provinces. Illyricum, which is modern-day Croatian coast, not that great in itself, very mountainous, and a few fishing villages alongside and some towns. But more importantly, Cisalpine Gaul, which is modern-day northern Italy, the Po Valley, which is much more promising. It also gives you immunity from prosecution, and he managed to get a 5-year term for his governorship. This ended up being extended, so he was going to do very well for himself. Now, Caesar is very famous for the Gallic Wars. Now, he used some excuses from Gallic tribes who were allied with Rome. He used some excuses to go and start conquering Gaul. And the wars lasted from 58 to 50 BC. So an 8-year war in which he kicked arse and went all over the place and won. Many great battles, many great stories, but this is not a story about the Gallic Wars. In 50 BC, the Senate had got so annoyed and jealous of Caesar, and probably a bit scared, because he had a very experienced, very loyal, large army, plus many Gauls who were also on his side. They decided to terminate his governorship and declared him an enemy of the people and Senate of Rome. They demanded that he come before the Senate to face trial. This would not have been a fair trial, it would have been a political kangaroo court. So, Caesar, he had a decision to make. Would he disband his armies, give up his power, and go and be humiliated and stripped of his authority and powers and titles? Or would he take what he believed he deserved? Well, on the 10th of January, he made his decision. He crossed the Rubicon, and the First Civil War began. When news of Caesar's actions reached Rome, panic ensued. At this point, Pompey and Caesar were no longer the allies that they once were. Crassus had been killed in 53 BC when he battled the Persians in Syria. Crassus had become jealous of Pompey and Caesar. Both of them, at this point, great, renowned generals who had victory after their name. Crassus didn't have anything, so he spent a lot of money building an army that he believed would conquer Parthia. Unfortunately, he was a better businessman than a general, and he ended up having molten gold poured down his throat, apparently. Don't know if that's true or not, but he did die a horrible death. So, there was only Pompey and Caesar left, and Pompey and Caesar were now enemies. The Senate fled, and Pompey and his men fled with them. They went down to Brundisium, and Caesar followed them. And there was a battle, they managed to get out, they went over to modern-day Greece, and the war went on. Eventually, Pompey would flee to Egypt, he would be killed, and the civil war would end up going in Caesar's favor. However, that didn't last long. The other thing that Caesar is famous for is being assassinated on the Ides of March. This opened up another civil war. Mark Antony and Octavian, Caesar's adopted son and heir, would then fight the assassins, eventually leading to Octavian, or Augustus, becoming the first Roman emperor and leading Rome in a very different direction. So, all of this comes from that one little river that Caesar decided to cross on the 10th of January, 49 BC. And if you know anything about history, you'll know that almost everything about the modern world has some root somewhere in the Roman Empire. So, if you like these videos, come back for more tomorrow. Like, subscribe, and comment.